Dogworks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dogworks. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
Start your day tomorrow with The Daily Dog with Michelle Forto, the morning podcast on Dogworks Radio. Apple Podcast reviewer Patty Christensen calls it funny, smart, and filled with all the info I want to know about dogs. I love this show. Wake up with The Daily Dog. Available on Dogworks Radio on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your shows.
Radio Free Palmer 89.5 KVRF presents Mushing Radio, hosted by Robert Forto. Mushing Radio is about dog-powered sports, living in the Great White North, and mushing. Visit our website at mushingradio.com. Here is your host, Robert Forto.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert Forto, and you're listening to Mushing Radio on KVRX 89.7 in the Mat-Su Valley. RadioFreePalmer.org is our live streaming site, and you can find all of our episodes over on DogWorksRadio.com. Be sure to check us out on social media, searching for Dogworks Radio, and you can find our podcast anywhere they have podcasts, such as Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, and the like. And joining me today, calling in from Montana, is Junior Dog Musher Charmayne Morrison. Charmayne, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well, thank you. I know we spoke a couple of months ago and you've had a busy winter, but before we jump into that, can you tell us who you are and what you're all about, please?
I'm Charmayne Morrison. I am a 17-year-old junior musher from northwestern Montana. And this winter, I ran the Junior Iditarod.
And when you were on the show, I guess it was in October or November, you were just planning on getting your ducks in a row to to drive up here and take your team with you and all that. But you had a little bit of a change of plans, didn't you?
Yes. So I planned on running the Junior Race to the Sky here in Montana, which is a 100-mile race with my team. But we ended up not quite being ready for it. My dogs are really young, so they weren't quite mentally able for those longer runs. So I wasn't going to go, and for a few days I was just really, trying to accept the fact that I wasn't going to go to Alaska and get a run the Junior Iditarod. And then a couple of friends had suggested to fly up and borrow a dog team, and thankfully that worked out really well, and I had a good time.
So when you talked about the Junior Race to the Sky, did you sign up and run that race, and did you end up scratching or what?
Yeah, so I had lost my main leader. He was killed in a freak accident a couple weeks before, unfortunately, and so I was down a very experienced dog and a really good leader, and I went and raced anyways. And we ended up scratching about 25 miles from the finish line. It was an 8-dog race, and I ended up dropping 2 at the checkpoint that night. And then during that second leg, I had another dog get injured, and he was a really big dog. And packing him up those hills was not easy for the 5 remaining dogs. So they kind of just decided, they were done, and I figured I wasn't going to push them because they were really young, and I owed it to them to just make it fun for them and let them be done there.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe that your dog was killed with that. That's got to be hard on you. Of course, anytime we lose one of our sled dogs, they're almost like family, aren't they? They're just so close to us. We have such a bond. And then when something like that tragic happens relatively quickly before a race, that really changes your strategy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and this particular dog, Mozart was his name, was kind of held the team together, if that makes sense. He was probably the most experienced dog on my team, and I had a really close bond with him being one of my leaders, and it was, really heartbreaking that our whole season kind of fell apart that after he was killed. So that was a big loss for my team, but we went out and we had fun at Race to the Sky and learned some things, even if we didn't finish.
Well, you don't always have to finish. I don't know how many times over my career that I've had to scratch for one reason or another. Sometimes it's a dog problem, sometimes it's a musher problem, sometimes it's a weather problem. You just don't know until you get out there and try. And I think that's a big part of it, is just getting out there and getting to the start line and giving it your all with whatever you have, and doing your best. And there's no shame in scratching, for sure. There's always next time, isn't there?
Definitely.
So you had said that you, just a couple of days before the race, I remember you guys talking back and forth on Facebook, and you were thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to go. And, I was reading some of the musher threads, and then one of my friends, and I think who is now a mutual friend of ours, Meredith Mapes, who just finished her rookie Iditarod just a couple of weeks ago, had suggested that possibly you rent or lease or borrow a dog team up here. And of course, she has a lot of connections to the junior community, and it's my understanding that's what you did. You flew up here and borrowed. Did you borrow several dogs from a couple of mushers, or the entire team from one musher? How did that work out for you?
Well, I had contacted a bunch of different mushers, and some had said that they might have a couple dogs. Some had said that they had some equipment, and then I was put in contact with Kathleen Frederick, who I ended up borrowing a whole team and all my equipment that I needed that I couldn't bring with me from her, which was super awesome. And it ended up working out really well. I'm really happy.
So you flew up here literally at the last minute. Did you come up here with family? Who was sort of in tow with you?
Me and 3 suitcases.
Oh my goodness! So you can.
I ended up flying up alone. My parents couldn't get that last minute time off of work to fly up with me and stay that long. But yeah, it was really last minute.
So it ended up turning into quite an adventure, for sure. So when you got up to Alaska, I'm sure you kind of felt like a fish out of water. You were coming up to race in just a few days. You didn't have much of anything in terms of a strategy or a plan. At least that point, you thought, before you came up, my season's sort of over. And here you were up in Alaska getting ready to prep for Iditarod. Can you tell our listeners how that sort of worked out from the time you got off the plane till the time to the starting line?
Oh, goodness. A lot of luck, I think. I got there about a week and a half before the start, which gave me some time to run the dogs and kind of get to know the team and try out, a whole new sled and get to know the trails a little bit. And then I went on a few longer runs. I was told that the dogs had been raced the weekend before in another 150-mile race, kind of the same 75-mile, and then a rest in the 75-mile, same setup, I guess, as Junior Iditarod. So I knew they could do the miles and they could do those longer runs. The big thing was just me getting to know the dogs and making sure that they were going to listen to all my commands and getting to know a new style of a sled and that sort of thing.
And obviously you did well. You ended up getting to the starting line of the Junior Iditarod, and all that entails. You guys had your vet checks and your mandatory meeting the night before. Can you tell us about sort of the setup? How does the Junior Iditarod set up in regards to how they handle their mushers pre-race compared to races like the Junior Race to the Sky and other races you've done?
So we do our vet checks a little bit differently here at Race to the Sky. We do them, at least for the junior race, like the morning of the race. And then usually our musher meeting is like an hour before the start, and then we go out and we just go. It's not usually like a week-long affair leading up to it like Iditarod is. Junior Iditarod is, just 2 days before is vet checks and then your meetings. But it's not as like drawn out. I don't know that it's a good thing or a bad thing either way.
Well, Charmayne, when my daughter ran the Junior Iditarod, I remember that, the vet check was one day, then we had to come back, and we live about 45 miles or so from the Iditarod headquarters in Wasilla. So I remember we had to come back. I think it was Friday night, maybe. We had to do the mandatory mushers meeting, and that's where, they went over all the rules and the trail and took the group picture with you guys in your hoodies and all of that stuff. And then they had to turn around and do the race. I believe it was the next day. And that year, they were starting in Big Lake at Martin Booser's kennel. Where did you guys start this year for the starting line of the Junior Iditarod?
So we started near Kinnick on, I think it's Kinnick Lake, if I remember right.
Right.
Which was really nice because I was staying at Eric Kelly's kennel. That's where the Kathleen's dogs were for the winter. And his place is in Kinnick. So I was able to train on some of the trails before the start, which was really cool to see at least the first 30 miles or so. And we didn't have that far to travel, which was really nice because I'm used to having to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to races, and then for Junior Iditarod, you're 10 minutes away.
Right. So you guys got ready to jump onto the starting line and the start of the race, and that's a really historical trail. I mean, that's the original Iditarod trail leading from Joe Reddington's place, which is right down the road, so to speak, from Kinnick Lake, and then you go up and down all those hills and eventually make it over to the Gnome sign, I believe. Did you guys pass that sign on the Junior Iditarod?
I was told we did. I don't remember seeing it. I don't know if I was paying attention well enough. But I recognized, most of the trails that we had been training on before because the dogs had been training on them pretty much all year. And so they knew, and I kind of knew at least most of the beginning part of the trail.
Right. So then you guys head down the trail. You go through the Eagle Song Lodge, great people there, and that's one of your checkpoints, and on over to Yetna, and then sort of do the course in reverse. So can you tell us about the race itself? How did you feel going into it? How was the race throughout the 150 miles or so? And just tell us maybe how you finished and that sort of thing.
So I drew bib number 2, which meant that I was the first dog team out, with our honorary mushers being number 1. And I kind of had mixed feelings about that. I like to start kind of near the middle. Going out first was kind of nice because I didn't have to get myself all nervous before, in anticipation of the other dog teams going. So it was kind of nice to go out first. It was really warm the first day. We had gotten a foot of snow 2 nights before, and it wasn't really groomed. They went over it a couple times with snowmobiles, so we could had a trail, but it wasn't really packed down, so it was really, really slow going. And then I think it was in the 20 or 30 degree temperatures, so it was really warm, and not as good for the dogs. And our speeds were definitely slower, but we just kind of took it in stride, and stopped and snacked a lot and made sure they had a lot of time to kind of cool off in the snow. By the time we got to Eagle Song, about 55 miles in, I think is what it is, it started getting dark. And before that, I was traveling with 2 other junior mushers, Christina Gibson and Laura Renner. So that was really fun getting to travel with other mushers, and we were really close together for a good portion of the ways before Eagle Song. And then I got to Eagle Song and snacked the dogs again, signed in and signed out, and then saw one more dog team and passed, and made it to Yetna about 8 o'clock. And I was expecting a lot more running on the river. We weren't on, I was expecting hours on the river, and it didn't seem like it was that long, I guess. So that was kind of nice, just because I was told beforehand that the river can be really brutal and be really cold. So we get to Yetna about 8 o'clock, and we bedded down the dogs, and I made sure everybody was okay and had the vets look over them and that sort of thing. And then with our 10-hour layover and our differential, I think we left around 6:30 in the morning. And then that night, it got really cold. I think leaving the checkpoint was somewhere in the negative 20s, which is a big difference between the first day and the 20 above to 20 below. So for about the first 20 miles out of Yetna going to Eagle Song, I was freezing my butt off. My toes were very cold. I didn't think I would need like toe warmers in my boots when I left the checkpoint because I felt fine then, but as we were going, I usually stay warm by like pedaling and ski poling and stuff, but we were going fast enough that I couldn't really pedal along because if we were going any faster, I risked injuring the dogs. And then by the time we got to Eagle Song, my like eyelashes were kind of frozen together, and I have some cool pictures that Julia Reddington took that are kind of show how cold it was in the frost. And then after that, the sun started coming up, and it was kind of nice because it was still cold, but it was not like uncomfortably cold. And passed another team on the river. I'm not sure how far from the finish, maybe 30 miles from the finish. And by the time we got to Old Hunter Trailhead, which they say is, I think they shouted out at us, it's like 18 miles to go. I was kind of ready to be done. I wanted like a warm meal at that point. And then kind of wove through the swamps of Willow for those last 18 miles, and went over a couple road crossings and some lakes, and then finally got to the last lake, and you can see all the, people at the finish line, and you can't help but smile because, everybody's cheering, and it's just a real happy event, and that was really cool.
And what place did you finally finish in?
I finished 7th.
Hey, not bad at all for sure, especially for your first Junior Iditarod. And not only that, but you were running dogs that you didn't even know a week and a half, 2 weeks before that. How did that compare to your own team? Obviously, you've been working with your guys for a long time, and here you are with a new set of dogs. You had no idea how fast they could run, so to speak. You didn't know, their individual personalities or quirks. How did you feel going into that race, ready to go with a new team? And then how were they all the way through the race and then at the finish?
Well, it was definitely different. I drove the dog team a little bit different than I would have if I had, an extra 2 weeks to get to know them, I think. Like the first day I was very conservative. I wasn't running out of the chute at, 10, 12 miles an hour. I was keeping them down at 8 or 9. So I ended up getting passed a lot in the beginning. So it was like kind of a moral degrading thing. I don't know, something like that. But they ended up, they picked up speed after that as I got to, get to used to the feel of them. But I wasn't too sure how hard to push them that first day, just because I didn't want to injure anybody, and I didn't know how far I could push them until it was too far. Whereas with my team, I can kind of tell based off of certain dogs' attitudes and that sort of thing. If it's we maybe need to back off the speed a little bit, or we can push it a little bit more. And so with these dogs, it was a little bit harder. But then at the checkpoint, I kind of realized that they're able to handle like those longer, harder, tougher runs, and that maybe we could start passing some more teams and kind of rise up in the standings a bit. That was I wish I would have done some longer runs, like really like those 78-mile runs before the race, but there just wasn't enough time to leave, in case anybody got injured, so we could have enough time for recovery.
Right. One thing that's pretty cool about Junior Iditarod is they try to do their best to sort of set it up how the big races, the Iditarod itself. I mean, you guys use the same type of trackers. You guys have the same trail markings and all of that. It's very, very similar to the big race because it is a qualifier for for the big race. It's a 150-mile qualifier. How did you like that setup? Just sort of the way that the race is ran. We talked about, it being sort of drawn out at the beginning, but all in all, did you feel it was a pretty well-run race?
Definitely, yeah. I really liked it. I wasn't really used to that long of a rest at the checkpoint, like a 10-hour layover. It was good for the dogs and good for us, like us juniors, to kind of figure out how to manage a longer rest like that. But I think typically in like Iditarod and stuff, they don't rest that long at a checkpoint unless it's for their mandatory like 24 or their 8-hour. But I don't know if I would say that was a problem, just kind of a thing that I noticed. I don't know. I really liked it. I don't have any complaints. I guess that's good.
Right. And then at the end, you guys have a really nice banquet. They give out awards and prizes to just about everybody. And if I remember correctly, when my daughter ran, they gave everybody like a 5-gallon bucket from Home Depot or something. It was full of all kinds of stuff. Did you guys get that as well?
Yes. Full of like dog treats and
gift cards and all kinds of stuff.
And gift cards, all kinds of stuff from the awesome sponsors of Junior Iditarod. Let's see, they gave out trophies for like sportsmanship and humanitarian and that sort of thing. And
yeah, it's definitely a cool race. So now you finish the race. How much time do you have until you jump on a plane and fly home?
I'm home now.
Right.
So let's see, I stayed a week after. So I ended up getting to stay for the ceremonial start of the Iditarod. And I went to the musher banquet and the meet and greet and got to meet a whole bunch of mushers, and that was really cool. And then I flew home Sunday, the day of the actual start, so I didn't get to see that. But I got a handler pass so I could be like on the street of the ceremonial start.
Right.
So that was really cool, watching all the teams go down the 11-mile little, the short run where they, where all the people can go and watch and that sort of thing.
It's a huge party, a huge circus, isn't it? Everybody, seems like everybody in Anchorage is down there watching that. That's different than a lot of other races, isn't it?
Yeah. We get, like, here in Montana when we have the Races Sky, we have quite a few, like, spectators, but we don't do, like, a ceremonial start. And definitely not as many people.
Right. So now you're home. You've been home for, I don't know, close to a month now. Are you still running your dogs there? Is the weather holding up, or are you pretty much done for the year?
We're pretty much done. The snow is gone. It's been replaced by mud. And the sun is out, and it's been in like the 50s, and nights are still cold, so we could go on the 4-wheeler or the cart or something like that. So I've been kind of just giving them time off. Got a new litter of puppies, so that's fun.
Right. So, I have to ask, we had you on before the race. We have you on after the race. I don't recall exactly what you said when I asked you what was next the last time you were on, but now that you're a Junior Iditarod finisher, what is next for you and your kennel?
We have finished our qualifiers, and then Iditarod. I'm aiming for Iditarod 2020. We'll see. I ended up not counting or using Junior Iditarod as one of my qualifiers because I want to make sure that my dogs can run these qualifying races, and I want to qualify with my dogs since this is the team that I'm going to be running Iditarod with instead of a borrowed team. So we got to do our qualifiers, and then the Iditarod, and eventually Quest. Maybe not in that order, but
one or the other. So Charmayne, was this the only time in terms of age that you could run Junior Iditarod?
Well, I could have years before, but I'm too old now, I guess.
So you're aged out. So you were 17 this year when you ran it, right? So you had mentioned qualifiers. Yep. Are you planning on doing the big boy race to the sky, and what else is on your agenda?
I'm not sure. I'm not entirely positive what the plan for this winter is. Whether I stay in Montana or come to Alaska with my dogs and my team, and all my gear stuff, or if I try going like to Bear Grease and that sort of thing. I'm not really sure. I'm kind of leaning toward just coming to Alaska because there's a lot more options as far as races.
Yeah,
we'll see.
If you came up here, you could literally get them all done in the month of January, I think. If you ran all the qualifiers, you could do bam, 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 pretty much one weekend after another and be done with them. And, of course, if you do well and qualify, you're ready to go in a month compared to, maybe a couple of years, especially down there in the lower 48, where sometimes you guys just don't get the snow and a lot of races are canceled, aren't they?
Yeah. In the past, we've had some really bad snow years, and this year for Race to the Sky, we had some pretty decent snow, and it stayed cold out, which was nice. But definitely in past years, we've had to adjust the trail and shorten, the 300-mile race down to like a 250 or something like that, just because lack of trail and lack of snow and bad weather.
Right. So I just have a couple of more questions, and then, of course, I want to make sure you can thank anybody you want to and tell people how to find you. But my first question to you is, I guess it's sort of both in the same. First off, what do you think about sort of the mushing community at large in Alaska and how they sort of came together and helped you out? And then secondly, sort of piggybacking on that, would you advise or suggest if somebody was in your shoes and either wanted to borrow a team or lease a team or whatever, would you recommend that to somebody sort of with your same type of experience and goals?
Definitely. I kind of am amazed by the community of mushers, not just in Alaska, but really, all mushers, because I have traveled, to other places and races and stayed with other mushers, and everybody, even if we've never met, just talking on, social media or just putting the word out there that you might need something from, some help or something like that. And mushers are always really willing to lend a hand. And I just think it's really awesome that the community is just kind of really tightly knit and really supportive of each other. And I don't think I've met a single musher who hasn't been. I'm sure there probably are a few out there, but I haven't met them yet. So as far as leasing or borrowing a team, there's some upsides, and I can see how there would be some downsides to that. Some mushers are very protective over their dogs and don't want anybody running their dogs, which is understandable, in case something gets injured, one of their dogs get injured or something like that. But I think somebody like another junior that is in my shoes, if they, really wanted to run Junior Iditarod, I think there's going to be somebody out there that is going to help them out, even if it's just a little bit, or in my case, the whole team.
90 seconds.
I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, and of course, like you said, a lot of those mushers have extra dogs, whether they're the puppy team or the B team or even the C team, that they're trying to either get miles on for longer races like Iditarod or Quest or whatever, but just having other people run them and give them miles and good experience helps out a lot. I know a lot of the bigger kennels will do that for the junior mushers, like the Reddingtons and the Boosters and the Mackeys and all of those types of names in mushing will definitely do that to help folks out. Okay, so Charmayne, is there anybody you would like to thank here? Any sponsors, any people that helped you out along the way? And then lastly, how can folks find you on social media or website or whatever?
Yes, so there's a lot of people who have contributed to this entire adventure, namely my parents, who allowed me to fly 2,500 miles away without them to, like, basically complete strangers for 2.5 weeks. Some of my teachers, Miss Fisher and Miss Williams, have been super supportive, both financially and like educationally. They've helped me a lot.
10 seconds.
Dealing with, school and the dogs and managing that. Off-Road Vixens, they are a super awesome clothing company that produces clothes for women who love the outdoors. They're super cool. There's a lot more that I'm probably forgetting about right now.
That's okay. We'll put some of them on your show page for sure. So how can folks find you and follow you along?
So we are on Facebook and Instagram as Morrison Racing Kennel. We have a website, morrisonracingkennel.com. I don't know if it's live right now. Been editing it recently. We're mostly Facebook and Instagram at Morrison Racing Kennel.
Excellent. I'll definitely link.
To update the page a lot.
I'll definitely link over to those pages as well. Charmayne, it has been a pleasure to have you back on and hear about your adventures during Iditarod. I know when we spoke in the fall, whether it had been October or November, you were really excited about coming up and getting this one under your belt, so to speak. So congratulations for doing that. Good luck in the coming season. And if you're doing great things out there and you would like to come back on and talk about it, you're always welcome to come back, and maybe we'll have you on one of these days soon as being Iditarod or Yukon Quest finisher. How's that?
I'd be happy to come back on.
Excellent. All right, well, take care of yourself and enjoy the off season, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of my guest today, Charmayne Morrison, this is Robert Forto from Mushing Radio. We will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michelle Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.
If you like our podcast, there are a few things you can do. You can take a couple of minutes and go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also check out all of our DogWorks Radio sponsors and promotions in our show notes. Another thing you can do is go over to Facebook, like our Facebook page, and one last thing, please tell all of your friends by spreading the word about DogWorks Radio. Thank you so much for listening to us. We really appreciate you.
DogWorks Radio is produced by Robert Forto. Logo art by Angry Squirrel Studios. DogWorks Radio is produced in conjunction with KVRF 89.7 in Palmer, Alaska.
For dog training advice, you can contact Alaska Dog Works at 907-841-1686 or visit their website at alaskadogworks.com. If you have a show idea or would like to be a guest, please contact us by sending an email to live@dogworksradio.com.